Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Friday, June 7th, and today is day 245 since October 7th. A few key highlights from OSHA, the Office of Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, and their perspective about what's happening in Gaza. The UN Human Rights Office reports that an airstrike on a UN school at a refugee camp in Gaza suggests the failure of the Israeli military to ensure strict compliance with international humanitarian law. They're referring to the An Nasrat refugee camp. They also have reported that the Al-Aqsa Hospital in Deir al-Balah in Gaza has been overwhelmed with patients and that one of its two generators is completely out of service. All medical evacuations out of Gaza have been completely suspended since May 7th, which was when Israel's attacks on Rafah began. And 9 out of 10 children in the enclave of Gaza have experienced some form of severe food poverty, according to UNICEF. Lest we think things have slowed down in terms of the attacks or the repercussions of bombings, the reality of the crisis in Gaza, I just wanted to give a few of the statistics in terms of the humanitarian developments there. These are also from OSHA and their report from today, June 7th. Israeli bombardment from air, land, and sea continues to be reported across much of the Gaza Strip, resulting in further civilian casualties, displacement, and destruction of houses and other civilian infrastructure. Airstrikes have reportedly been especially intense in central Gaza, particularly in 3 different refugee camps and eastern Deir al-Balah. Ground incursions and heavy fighting also continue to be reported, particularly in Rafah. Intensified hostilities and military operations in Rafah have so far forced the displacement of more than 1 million people, deepening the humanitarian crisis and significantly destabilizing humanitarian aid flows. There are currently less than 100,000 people estimated to have remained in the Rafah government. You'll recall that Rafah was where the predominant location of the tent city, where the majority of displaced people were located, and now there's less than 100,000 people remaining there. Between the afternoons of June 3rd and 7th, 252 Palestinians were killed and 753 Palestinians were injured. In the past 24 hours, 77 Palestinians have been killed and 221 people have been injured. The death toll since October 7th in Gaza is now 36,731 Palestinians killed and at least 83,530 people injured in Gaza, according to the Ministry of Health. In terms of an update on the hostage ceasefire negotiations, Qatar has threatened to the expulsion of Hamas leaders that have been residing in Qatar if the organization does not agree to President Biden's ceasefire and hostage release deal proposal. CNN reported that. In response, a senior Hamas official said that expulsion is not being considered and added that the decision to accept or reject the proposal is up to the organization's leadership in Gaza. According to him, expelling Hamas leadership would have no effect and would only harden Hamas's position. There have been continued hostilities at the northern border between Israel and Hezbollah. The IDF said that they have struck Hezbollah targets in South Lebanon, and there have been hostile aircraft and rocket alerts blared across the north of Israel for most of the day today, Friday. My phone, I still have red alerts turned on, and at one point, there was just alert after alert after alert, meaning that there have been quite a few incoming attacks from Hezbollah. One alert sounded in the city of Nazareth, which is in central Israel. And so there are concerns that those hostilities could escalate even further. The IDF has said that the sirens heard in Nazareth were triggered due to the launching of intercepted missiles that were suspicious aerial targets. Between Israel and the US, President Biden told ABC that he believes that Prime Minister Netanyahu has taken US concerns over the military operation in Rafah into account. And so President Biden said, I think he's listening to me. They were going to go in full bore to invade all of Rafah, and they haven't done that. Biden added, what they've done is they've agreed to a significant agreement referring to the three-stage proposal that Biden unveiled last week. I don't even have words about kind of the commentary coming from the White House right now. Secretary Blinken is set to arrive in Israel on Monday, which is another significant U.S. delegation will be headed back to Israel. Prime Minister Netanyahu, the date has now been set for when he will be speaking to Congress. So that is set for July 24th. That's 6 weeks later than it was originally intended. Netanyahu has said he's very moved to have the privilege of representing Israel before both houses of Congress and to present the truth about their just war. It used to be when you got private tours or when you got tours of the Capitol building, Prime Minister Netanyahu had received the most standing ovation in the history of the US Capitol building. And so it's believed that there will be significant protests around the Capitol building on that date, July 24th. Responding to a Haaretz expose, which revealed that Israel tried to sway global public opinion by targeting Black American lawmakers in the United States. In an online influence campaign, Democratic Representative Richie Torres said, "If you think I need to be influenced to be pro-Israel, then please see a doctor because your brain might be rotting." That's the sophistication of our elected officials. Gaza, the IDF said that the Air Force attacked a container on the grounds of an UNRWA school because they had reports that terrorists were gathered inside of it. The Associated Press has said that the proportion of women and children that are being reported having been killed in Gaza appears to have declined sharply, which contradicts statements that are coming from the Ministry of Health out of Gaza. CENTCOM has reported that the U.S. is temporary pure in Gaza, which will allow the delivery of humanitarian aid, is set to resume activity in coming days. And U.S. aid has said that it will give more than $90 million for shelter, water, food, sanitation, and hygiene for Palestinians in Gaza. The UN Secretary General has informed Israel of its decision to add Israel to the country of a blacklist of countries that have harmed children in conflict zones, adding to Israel's UN ambassador. Israel's UN ambassador has called that decision disgraceful, and Prime Minister Netanyahu responded and said that's preposterous, that the UN itself has put itself on a blacklist in history. And Netanyahu said that the UN has determined itself to be a supporter of Hamas murderers, and the IDF is the world's most moral army, end quote. Responding to calls from Israel's Attorney General to establish a state commission of inquiry related to the events of October 7th and the war, Israel's war on Gaza, Prime Minister Netanyahu's cabinet has said the time is not yet ripe to do so. And War Cabinet Minister Benny Gantz is going to hold a press conference tomorrow night, Saturday night, where he is expected to announce his resignation from Israel's government, which could have significant repercussions. The mayor of the city of Haifa in northern Israel has said that protests against the war in Gaza should not be held in Haifa, that they belong in Israel's capital. He does not think the freedom of expression should be realized in Haifa. The mayor's associates have said he was not referring to weekly protests against the government, but to those organized by Israeli Arabs against the war in Gaza. In the West Bank, dozens of settlers have been acting out. They entered a Palestinian village near the city of Nablus. They fired shots in the air. They torched cars and olive trees. They attempted to set fire to houses. This is according to an Israeli Defense Forces source. Palestinian reports said that settlers also set fire to houses and cars near a village of Beitin in the West Bank. So significant concerns about those attacks, settler attacks in the occupied West Bank. And then significant reports also about Yemen. 9 Yemeni United Nations employees have been arrested or detained by Houthis. The circumstances are unclear, but that's been reported. And the US military said that they destroyed 8 Houthi drones and 2 naval drones in the Red Sea in the last 24 hours. Finally, I wanted to share that Dr. Martin Akkad, who's a Lebanese Christian, has been announced to be the 11th president of the Near East School of Theology, NEST. In Beirut, Lebanon, that announcement was just made. He will become the 11th president starting September 1st. Dr. Akkad brings a wealth of experience, theological education, interfaith dialogue, leadership within the academic and socio-religious communities. He succeeds Dr. George Sabra, who's been at Nest for over a decade. Dr. Martin Akkad is a distinguished scholar with a deep commitment to theological education and interfaith understanding. He received his PhD in Islam and the history of Christian-Muslim relations. We've had the privilege of working with Dr. Martin Akkad in the past. We're just with him in Beirut in January, and we want to give Nest and Dr. Martin Akkad our most heartfelt congratulations on this significant news. May God be with him and with the seminary in their ongoing ministry, and may God go before us in our collective efforts towards peace.